Hi, young people. Man, we just had a storm come through here. Wind, lightning, thunder. I look down the driveway. I'm like, crap. Blew down one of my trees. I think that one was dead anyway. I think they're all three dying or almost dead. But I walked down there, see how heavy it was, if I could kick it or move it. It ain't moving. So I gotta go down there with a chainsaw, hopefully, and try to whittle that down. But anyway, so let's go over here. Look at the gate. What are you doing, boy? Look, I'm eating, dude. Alright, well, shit. Let me try to move this out of the wind a little bit. Talk about government failure. That wind's whipping around this corner. I don't know if that's going to be on the speaker or not, but we'll see. Of course, the thunder's going to be kicking up here too. So, I was watching that movie, I Survived. Man, I'm telling you, that freaking movie. I mean, I've seen some stuff as a cop, but listen to those stories. Man, it's just amazing. So, this one is just classical government failure. So, well, I guess they're both a little bit of government failure, but one's people. Let's do the one where the people. Man, that wind's starting to whip through here. Hopefully you can hear me. I try to move this to the corner here so it gets less. Let's see if that might knock out some of that wind a little bit. So, this guy's driving down the road. If you saw this in a car. So he's driving down the road, and as he's driving, he notices a car coming straight across 3 or 4 lanes of traffic in California. 3 or 4 lanes of traffic, and he's like, man, that guy's going to hit me if he don't turn. And he said, before I knew it, he hit me. And after I tumbled and everything, I woke up, and I was upside down the side of this cliff. So he's on the side of a cliff, 50 feet down from the highway. I don't know if he was in it says truck, but it sounds like an 18-wheeler truck, because he said he was reaching up and pulling on the horn. So he's down there on the ground. He reaches up, pulls on the horn, honks the horn, figures somebody will find him, knowing he's still alive or he's trapped down there. Well, after his battery goes dead and nobody hears him, evidently the car that hit him and pushed him off just drove off and left. All the other cars driving by, nobody stopped, nobody, because that's California. Too many people, I don't want to get involved, it's too many problems, so everybody just ignored it. So he stayed down there for, I want to say, 36 or 48 hours before somebody found him. And so while he's down there, he notices that he's using one hand, and he sees his other hand in a tree, and he thinks he hit somebody. Outside his window, there's a hand in the tree. And he's like, shit, I hit somebody. So he said, I reached over and I touched him on the other hand and said, hey, hey. And he didn't move. And then I noticed on his thumb there was a little V-cut. And I was like, I've got one of those on my thumb. And then after a while, he said it triggered in that was his hand. Couldn't move his other hand. So after 48 hours, he said he figured he just had to cut himself out. So he takes out his pocket knife and he sticks it in his wrist, and he's going to cut his hand off because it's trapped in the tree and he can't get it out. And he can't get out, and he's been down here all this time. So as he's trying to cut through the bone in his wrist, he said he snaps the point off his knife. So then he's like, well, maybe my fingers are just cut. I'll cut my fingers off, and maybe I can pull my hand out. So he said, I stuck the knife because it was a dull edge on the thumb, and he goes, the thumb had kind of turned black now, and it just kind of popped off. And he goes, then I went to the next finger, it popped off, and he goes, all the fingers popped off pretty easy. And he goes, I don't know why, but I took these fingers and I lined them up, because he goes, they were my fingers and I wanted them. So he says, I lined them up, and he goes, after my fingers was off, I thought I could get my hand out. He goes, I couldn't, I was still trapped. So I knew I couldn't get, it was lightning. So, man, I've been doing all this research on my lightning, but anyway, I'll get back to that. So he couldn't cut his wrist off, so he starts trying to cut his elbow off. And he can't get through his elbow. Well, while he's still waiting there, and he's got his fingers lined up, he said he heard this like fighting, like something attacked. And he looked down, his fingers were gone. And then he looked again, he goes, there was rats fighting over my fingers. And he goes, they were eating them. And he goes, I was upset because those were my fingers and I wanted them. And those rats were fighting over them and taking them. So anyway, this guy ends up getting rescued because some Caltrans worker's driving by. He actually sees the truck over there and goes, hey, I wonder if somebody's down there. He walks down there and finds the dude. So the dude, and oh, I forgot, after they fought for his fingers, he tried to cut his elbow off. He couldn't. And then he stabbed it in the shoulder because he was just going to cut his whole arm off. He was going to cut his shoulder off. And when he stabbed it in, he passed out. And the next time he woke up, that's when the Caltrans person was hollering, hey, is anybody down there? And he goes, yeah, I'm down here. So he made it out. So that's kind of the failure of people, I guess. I mean, maybe you can't hang that on government, but this next one is just freaking... When people give up their guns thinking government's going to protect them, it just kills me. So, this girl's in her home, and she has like 3 or 4 roommates. And her ex-boyfriend's been calling acting weird. And her new boyfriend, or husband, I'm not sure, is in the house. And he's like, you know, I'm pretty good. I can't remember if he was kind of like, he thought the guy was a problem and she didn't, or she thought he was a problem and he didn't. But one of them was like, don't worry about it, you know, he's just calling, he's just being weird. Well, it wasn't just being weird. He showed up at the house, pulled out a gun, and started shooting people. Killed her roommate, shot her shot a female roommate. She was in the shower. Boyfriend heard him. He run down the highway to tackle him, and he turns and he shoots him. Then he shoots him in the head, and he's bleeding out his head. Then he goes in the bathroom. She's in the shower. She gets out of the shower, and he attacks her. The boyfriend was fighting with him, hit the shower door. Her girlfriend didn't know what was happening. She got out of the shower like, what's going on? And by that time, her boyfriend had been shot in the head now, and her ex-boyfriend with the gun was here saying, hey, me and you are going to die today. So I think he shoots her once, and then she picks up a clothes hamper and moves it in front of her, and he's trying to shoot her. And I've told some stories they used to give us in training in cop. There was a cop, and a guy pulled a gun on him, and he had his notebook in his hand, and he just put his notebook in front of the gun and moved it. And the guy wouldn't shoot. The guy was moving the notebook, and the cop was able to draw his gun and get fires off before the guy was, because in the suspect's mind, if you put a barrier, they don't want to shoot through it. And in this case, that helped her too. She had like I said, a laundry basket. He could have shot right through it. And as she moved it, he was going around. Finally, he made a couple shots. I think he hit her. And then he said, now we're going to die together. He shoots himself in the head. Oh, this is after he lights the place on fire. He's burning down a house. So you got 4 people shot. The house is on fire. And the girl gets to 911 and calls 911. Or no, boyfriend got to 911. Boyfriend wakes up with his head, blood squirting out his head, so he sticks his finger in a hole to stop the blood, and he calls 911, says, hey, I just woke up, my girlfriend, ex-boyfriend came in here, he shot everybody, I don't know if he's still here, they got several people shot, the house is on fire, get help here. What do you think government does? What government always does. Government protects government. Cops and firemen show up and nobody goes in the house. Because according to fire policy, they can't go in if there's somebody armed or dangerous in there. So they can't go in. The cops got there with guns and they weren't going to make injury because the house was on fire. And until the fire department made it safe, the cops weren't going in. So I was just like, dude, you're killing me. So the guy ends up with a hole in his head. He can barely move. He calls back 911, goes, hey, what's going on? I hear cops. And the lady's like, well, we can't come in. Fire department can't go in because we don't know if there's a guy in there with a gun. And the police can't go in because the building's on fire and the fire said nobody can go in. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. They're going to let all these people die and burn up. Because that's what government does. And, I mean, it just amazes me time and time again we have examples of when you give government the absolute authority to protect you and you give up your ability to protect yourself. Government's never there when you're needed. They always come afterwards. And even when they come afterwards, they're going to have excuses on why not to come in and help you. Even though they told you, if you give us the guns, we'll protect you. And people still believe it. And I mean, this case was just classical. Finally, the guy waited for so long, the house was burning for, I don't know, 2 hours or something. I don't know how long it took him, but he was able to grab his girlfriend around the neck. He was dragging her out. had his phone in his hand because talking to 911, had his finger in his ear, and when he came outside, he thought the cops were going to shoot him because he thought they had a gun. And he's like, it's not a gun, it's my phone. So he threw his phone, pulled his finger out his head, then put his finger back, grabbed her, and then they made it to the hospital. But it was, to me, that was just, I've seen this over and over again. I don't understand how people don't get it. Don't ever give up your ability to defend yourself and think government will take that responsibility seriously, or will take it as serious as you do when your life's in danger, because it just isn't going to happen. I mean, you know, you talk to people in the UK over there and they can't defend themselves. People break in the house. The government says, no, we'll charge you if you fight back. Let them take what you want. We don't want violence. We don't want violence unless you do violence against us. You don't need a gun unless somebody attacks us, then we have people with guns around us. I mean, it's just so blaringly clear on how crazy that people would believe that government is going to protect you if you give them your guns. History shows it day in and out. If you read the news, you see perfect examples of where government failed to protect people when they said they were. And I mean, I just thought that case was classical for that, for demonstrating that. But anyway, all right, we'll go ahead and end that there with the little, my horses are underneath the shed being chilled. I'm waiting for this rain to go down a little bit and maybe go down there with a damn chainsaw and see if I can't get rid of that tree. All right, we'll end that there.